Today we're going to read the book called Amos and Boris. It was written and illustrated by William Steele. Okay. So what does the front of the book show? Anybody tell me? It shows a whale and the sun, and it has the name of the book and who it's written and illustrated by. Okay. And you have the spine of the book, which is right here. It also has the name of the book and who it's illustrated by. And when you flip over to the back, there is a short summary of what the book is about. There's also some reviews and some awards that the book was given whenever it was written. Okay, what do you think this book is about? Okay, what do you notice and wonder by looking at the front and the back of the book? Okay, we're going to see if that's correct. Okay, so Amos, a mouse, lived by the ocean. He loved the ocean. He loved the smell of sea air. He loved to hear the surf sounds, the bursting breakers, the backwashes with rolling pebbles. Illustration. He thought a lot about the ocean and he wondered about the faraway places on the other side of the water. One day he started building a boat on the beach. He worked on it in the daytime, while at night he studied navigation. Does anybody know what navigation means? Navigation is a passage of ships, so like you use navigation to get to your destination of where you're going. Do you ever use navigation? Maybe with your parents in the car? When the boat was finished, he loaded it with cheese, biscuits, acorns, honey, wheat germ, 2 barrels of fresh water, a compass, a telescope, a saw, a hammer, and nails, and some wood in case repairs should be necessary. He also had a needle and thread for the mending of torn sails and various other necessities such as bandages and iodine, a yo-yo, and playing cards. You see the illustration? On the 6th of September, with very calm sea, he waited till the high tide had almost reached his boat. Then, using his most savage strength, he just managed to push the boat into the water, climb on board, and set sail. The rodent for that was the boat's name. The boat's name was Rodent. Proved to be very well made and very well suited to the sea. And Amos, after one miserable day of seasickness, proved to be a natural sailor, for very well suited to the ship. He was enjoying his trip immensely. Anybody tell me what immensely means or try to guess at it? Okay, immensely means extremely. So is there anything you've been like extremely excited about before? You might be immensely excited about it. Good job. It was a beautiful weather, day and night. He moved up and down a ways of a big mountain, and he was full of wonder, full of enterprise, and full of love for life. One night, in a sea, he marveled at the sight of some whales spouting luminous water. And later, lying on the deck of his boat, gazing at the immense starry sky, the tiny mouse, Amos, a little speck of a living thing in the vast living universe, felt thoroughly akin to it all. Overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery of everything, he rolled over and over, right off the deck of his boat and into the sea. Okay. So, what did Amos do? Yes, he rolled off the boat. Okay, that's what. Anybody know what overwhelmed means? Or overwhelmed means defeated or too much going on at the time. Do you have a lot going on? Maybe a lot of homework you have to do? You ever feel overwhelmed? Help! He squeaked as he grabbed desperately at the rodent, but it evaded his grasp and went bowling along under full sail, and he never saw it again. So what happened to his boat, his ship? He lost the sail. And there he was. Where? In the middle of the immense ocean, 1,000 miles from the nearest shore, with no one else in sight as far as the eye could see, and not even so much as a stick of driftwood to hold on to. He was trying to find a stick to hold on to float in the water. Should I try to swim home? Amos wondered, or should I try to stay afloat? He might swim a mile, but never 1,000. He decided to just keep afloat, treading water and hoping that something, who knows what, would turn up to save him. But what if a shark or some big fish, a horse, turned up? What was he supposed to do to protect himself? He didn't know. There he is in the ocean, floating along, trying to stay afloat. Morning came, as it always does. He was getting terribly tired. He was very small, very cold, very wet, and a worried mouse. There was still nothing in sight but the empty sea. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, it began to rain. The picture showing the rain. At the last, rain stopped, and noonday sun gave him a bit of cheer and warmth of the vast loneliness. But his strength was giving out. He began to wonder what it would be like to drown. Would it take very long? Would it feel just awful? As he was asking himself these dreadful questions, a huge head burst through the surface of the water and loomed up over him. It was a whale. What sort of fish are you? The whale asked. You must be one of a kind. So what did he ask the whale? First, what kind of fish are you? I'm not a fish, Amos said. I'm a mouse, which is a mammal, the highest form of life. I live on land. Holy clam cuttlefish, said the whale. I'm a mammal myself. Though I live in the sea, call me Boris, he added. Amos introduced himself and told Boris how he came to be there in the middle of the ocean. The whale said he would be happy to take Amos to the ivory coast of Africa, where he happened to be headed anyway, to attend a meeting of whales from all the 7 seas. But Amos said he had had enough adventure to last him a while. He wanted only to get back home and hoped the whale wouldn't mind going out of his way to take him there. Not only would I not mind, Boris said, I would consider it a privilege. What other whale in all the world ever had the chance to get to know such a strange creature? Please climb aboard. And Amos got on Boris's back. See him right there on his back? What a relief to be so safe, so secure again. Amos lay down in the sun, and being worn to a frazzle, he was soon asleep. Anybody know what frazzle means? Okay. It means you're kind of like scared, had enough, like don't know if you can keep going. Okay. Then all of a sudden he was in the water again, wide awake, spluttering and splashing about. Boris had forgotten for a moment that he had a passenger on his back and had sounded. When he realized his mistake, he surfaced so quickly that Amos was sent somersaulting, tail over whiskers, high into the air. You may know what somersaulting means? Means you turn a flip or jumping up high. Okay. Y'all ever did that before? Oh, somersault like on trampoline? Jump up? Hitting the water hurt. Crazy with rage, Amos screamed and punched at Boris until he remembered he owed his life to the whale and quietly climbed on his back. From then on, whenever Boris warned a sound, he warned Amos in advance and got his okay. And whenever he sounded, Amos took a swim. See him swimming, jumping. He got somersaulted off. Yeah. Okay. Swimming along, sometimes at great speed, sometimes slowly and leisurely, sometimes resting and exchanging ideas, sometimes stopping to sleep. It took them a week to reach Amos's home shore. During that time, they developed a deep admiration for one another. Boris admired the delicacy, the quivering daintiness, the light touch, the small voice, the gem-like radiance of the mouse. Amos admired the bulk, power, the purpose, the river, the rich voice, and the abounding friendliness of the whale. And they just swimming all along. They became the closest possible friends. They told each other about their lives, their ambitions. They shared their deepest secrets with each other. The whale was very curious about life on land and was sorry that he could never experience it. Amos was fascinated by the whale's accounts of what went on the deep under the sea. Amos sometimes enjoyed running up and down the whale's back for exercise. When he was hungry, he ate plankton. The only thing he missed was fresh, unsalty water. See him running on the whale's back, on Boris's back? This time came to say goodbye. They were at the shore. I wish we could be friends forever, said Boris. We will be friends forever, but we can't be together. You must live on land and must live at sea. I'll never forget you, though. And you can be sure I'll never forget you, said Amos. I will always be grateful to you for saving my life, and I want you to remember that if you ever need my help, I'd be more than glad to give it. How he could ever possibly help Boris, Amos didn't know, but he knew how willing he was. The whale couldn't take Amos all the way into the land. They said their last goodbyes, and Amos dived off Boris's back and swam to the sand. Came swimming on the top of a cliff, watched Boris spout twice and disappear. Boris laughed to himself. He, how could this little mouse ever help me? Little as he is, he's all heart. I love him and I'll miss him terribly. Boris went to the conference off the Ivory Coast of Africa and then went back to a life whaling about while Amos returned to his life mousing around. And they were both very happy. Many years after the incidents just described, when Amos was no longer a very young mouse and when Boris was no longer a very young whale, there occurred one of the worst storms of the century, Hurricane Yetta. It just so happened that Boris the whale was flung ashore by a tidal wave and stranded on the very shore where Amos happened to make his home. It also just so happened that when the storm had cleared up and Boris was lying high and dry on the sand, losing his moisture in the hot sun, needing desperately to be back in the water, Amos came down to the beach to see how much damage Hurricane Yetta had done. Of course, Boris and Amos recognized each other at once. I don't have to tell you how these old friends felt meeting again in this desperate situation. Amos rushed toward Boris. Boris could only look at Amos. Have you ever missed somebody that you were away from for a little while? Can you relate to this? Amos, help me, said the mountain of a whale to the mote of a mouse. I think I'll die if I don't get back in the water soon. Amos gazed at Boris in agony of pity. He realized he had to do something very fast and had to think very fast about what it was he had to do. Suddenly he was gone. I'm afraid he won't I'm afraid he won't be able to help me, said Boris. Much as he wants to do something, what can a little fellow do? So Boris was thinking Amos couldn't help him because he was a little bitty mouse. Just as Amos had felt all alone in the middle of the ocean, Boris felt now, lying alone on the shore. He was sure he would die, and just as he was preparing to die, Amos came racing back with two of the biggest elephants he could find. Yeah. Without wasting time, these two good-hearted animals, known as elephants, got to pushing with all their might at Boris's huge body until he began turning over, breaded with sand and rolling down toward the sea. Amos, standing on the head of one of the elephants, yelled instructions, but no one heard him. So, do y'all know what good-hearted means? It means that you're kind to people, you have a good heart. So, when was the time you were good-hearted? Good job, I like that answer. In a few minutes, Boris was already in water with waves washing at him. He was feeling the wonderful wetness. You have to be out of the sea really to know how good it is to be in it, he thought. That is, if you're a whale. Soon he was able to wiggle and wriggle into deep water. So the elephants are pushing him. He looked back at Amos on the elephant's head. Tears were rolling down the great whale's cheeks. The tiny mouse had tears in his eyes, too. Goodbye, dear friend, squeaked Amos. Goodbye, dear friend, rumbled Boris, and he disappeared in the waves. They knew they might never meet again. They knew they would never forget each other. See how sad they look? Okay. So what do you think this story was meaning? Okay. So always be nice to somebody because you never know when it might come back. And they can be nice to you when you need help with something.